Welcome to the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage, where rude mechanicals do magic. Hello, I'm Bronze Age, Director of the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage, and welcome to another episode of Chair Hospital. Now, this is a chair is usually described as a wing back, which simply means that the back curves around. Sometimes there actually be panels that come out. And its original function was to give you a nice, comfortable place to sit in a big, drafty room before the days of central heating. This one has Queen Anne style legs on the front, which is this curve with the foot here, sometimes called a dough foot. And it's these legs that are giving us the problem. I'm going to have to strip all this upholstery off, which is kind of unusual because in the lab generally I have to repair them and preserve the upholstery at the same time, which does make it a lot more work. But in this case, I don't have to worry about being all that neat and preserving it so that it can be all put back together. So I'll come back when I got this done. Now I've got most of the cloth off, and I've got to release these springs, which is a lot easier than putting them back on. One of the corner braces is already broken out, and I didn't see a screw fall out, so I have no idea how long that one's actually been missing. This is what we'll be working with. Now I don't see any signs of nails driven through the dowels, so I'm hoping this thing will come apart without too much persuasion. That's pretty good. Whenever a piece of furniture fails, especially a chair, it usually goes back to the design and the construction, if you were trying to find an explanation. In this case, this chair is made up of pieces of wood that have been glued together. This part here and this part here, separate pieces of wood. That's actually a glue drip from when they put the arm here, the start piece of wood right here. And that makes it very weak up here, where the dowels and the holes are drilled for it. And then you put in this corner brace, which has a screw that goes through this little short piece of wood that also has a hole drilled in the end of it. So what's going to happen is that that screw puts a lot of stress on a very weak part of the wood. Chair leg has a lot of force on it, and eventually it's going to fail here. That's going to put extra stress on the dowels. That's going to put more stress on the other side, and eventually it's just simply going to snap off. What I'm going to do here is basically just put a splint. Before I do that, I'm going to shave down this little chip which is stuck out, because I want to get as much glue contact and glue surface right here as I possibly can, because that is the weak area. And as much as I'd like to fasten this down with a couple screws, that's what caused the problem in the first place. So I can glue this up, clamp it down, put some screws back here, but up here it's going to be depending strictly on the glue contact and the surface in order for it to be a good, strong repair. And that looks pretty good there. I'm using Tight Bond 2 on here because that's what's on the shelf right now. Tight Bond 1 would probably do just as well. But I am using PVA glue because this is going to be a structural joint, and I want it to be as strong as possible, or as long as possible. To put the legs back together, it's going back together with hide glue, which is my preferred glue for joints. And as I said before, this spot up here is the critical one. So I want it nice and tight and flat, because this is where all the stress is. And then one more. And now this sits overnight. I'll do the other side before I close up for the day, and we'll be ready to go back to work in the morning. Well, this looks like it came out pretty good. The other corner presented a strange problem. I probably should have tried to get this on the video, but it was late, and I wanted to get it set up so that it would be ready in the morning. But this board here, part of the seat frame, was apparently cut out on a bandsaw or something, so it was not at all straight. There was a big dip right here. So I bedded the patch piece in with fiberglass body repair compound. Amazing material, very strong, and when used for the right application, such as repairing a Corvette or a wingback chair, works out pretty good. Drilling out the dowels on the legs is fairly straightforward, because you can clamp everything down nice and tight and make sure that you are drilling the hole square to the face of the wood. Now, you're not going to have that luxury when you have to drill out the dowel in the chair. And these splinters, that jagged edge right there, makes it very difficult to get this drill bit in straight. So I carved this off as flat as I could possibly get it. And then I eyeballed the center as close as I can see it. And that'll give the point on the bit something to dig into. Keep this thing going completely crazy. And you can tell when you've got to the bottom, because there's always a empty space when the drill bit breaks through. Now for putting it back together and the glue up, I'm going to assemble the legs and the front piece first, because this being a bow back chair, it does what bows want to do, which is spread apart. And even though this will all be clamped up once everything is in place, before I get the clamps on, there's going to be a spreading action here. They'll be pulling this apart. So I want the glue to be at full strength before I actually stick it on here. For a glue up like this, you really need cheat marks. With turning things right and left and upside down, it's amazing how easy it is to get something backwards. And if you realize it before you've got it all clamped up and the glue starts to set, it might not be that bad. But putting this leg this way instead of this way, it's just going to make a long day. I like this style of clamp because it's very versatile, easy to make fixtures for, so that it'll fit any application. But I have never been able to keep up with the little plastic pieces that go on there. I don't know where they go. So I end up making my own. Just this is cut out of a piece of wood with a rare earth magnet in there. It keeps it in place, and that keeps me from having to need 3 hands to ever assemble. Now, one thing I always stress in all of these furniture repair videos is the importance of the dry fit. You want to make sure that everything goes back together the way it should, and more importantly, that your clamping scheme is actually going to hold it. Because once you've got the glue on everything, you really don't have time to be figuring out how you're going to hold it straight. And besides that, taking it back apart after it's covered in wet glue just makes a big mess. So now, take this back apart, slather glue all over it, which nobody really wants to see. And I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with these things. This is the spring that gives the cushion its bounce. And this little tab on the end of it has to be nailed to the top side of the front board, which is going to require flattening it out and stretching it at the same time, which I imagine if you're doing it without any of this stuff on top of the frame, might be easier, but really don't see any easy way to do it. So what I need is something that'll flatten this spring out and let me pull on it at the same time. And I have to admit, this is not the first design I tried, but it seems like the one that's got the best chance of actually working. And from my previous life of working on cars, I do know one thing. Any kind of job involving a spring is inherently dangerous. Well, I think that's actually going to work. I've got the corner braces reinstalled, the culprits of this problem to begin with, and that just leaves this piece. Now in the carpentry world, this would be called a nailer. Just a piece you put on there so something else can be nailed to it. And they did. They nailed it down over these straps, which left it bowed and crooked. And I really just can't put that back on like that. So I've cut a new piece, and I'm going to make clearance for all these straps so it'll go down nice and flat, nice and tight. And fortunately, I have the perfect tool for this job. This is the much maligned radial arm saw. And in the lab, it's our dedicated stacked dado head cutter. Now this burlap piece here is actually tacked to this front board. So to make life a little easier for the upholsterer, I'm putting this down with screws. This is Bronze Age, Director of the Secret Underground Laboratory, and I appreciate you sitting through this video about putting a wingback chair back on its Queen Anne legs. I would really appreciate it if you would hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't. Any questions on furniture repair, lighting repair, whatever else is on your mind, I welcome all comments, answer all questions, and again, thank you for watching.